Hi, it's John and C Nation, and you are tuned into the Kush Journals. Join me and my occasional guests each weekday as we discuss all things cannabis in the great state of Utah. Hey, it's John and C Nation, and you are tuned into the Kush Journals. Say hi, Jules.
Hi. Was that too loud?
No, it was pretty good. They heard you.
Yeah.
They heard you.
Yeah, they got the point across.
They
Hi.
turned their radios down and heard you. It is all good. That is how enthusiastic we are today. As y'all know, Jules and I were out in San Jose last week for the Terpenes and Testing World Conference, and in a word, it kicked so much ass, didn't it?
Oh my gosh, yes. Mind-blowing.
How many of these have you been to?
This is my very first one.
First
conference, and all I have to say is mind-blowing.
Yeah, Jules lost her conference cherry in San Jose.
I did.
So, first time at a conference, Jules. I've been to a few of these, and I kind of know what to expect. And this wasn't a really huge one, but what did you think?
It was, like I said, mind-blowing.
It really
just
is.
Everything that came with it. I just have to say that the environment was awesome.
It was. So we're at a place in San Jose. They won't allow cannabis inside the facility for some reason, but
you for sure smelled it.
I don't think everybody got the memo. The same was true when we were at BizCon in Las Vegas at the convention center there. They said absolutely no cannabis inside, so people took that to heart, and by the thousands hovered around the doors getting into the place smoking just to prove a point. It was a fog of cannabis haze. Anyway, we attended a conference on Monday called See Invest. So the Monday conference was comprised of 16 cannabis startup companies that were there to pitch investors. And okay, not all of them were startups, and not all of them by the time the conference happened actually needed some money, but we saw some really cool companies there, including one that we interviewed, and we're going to, we'll play that interview here in a little bit. They're called a Pot for Pot, and guess what they make and sell?
Easy, it's in the name.
Pots for Pot.
Yeah, it's in the name.
Truth in advertising, absolutely. And they were awesome. Josh and Jason and Brian, we got to know these guys pretty well over 3 days. We did that because we're really keenly interested in their product. And when you're interested in a product and the people in their company, the best way to take stock in all of that is just to spend time with them. And we did. These people really know what they're doing. Their product is dialed in. Their skill set is dialed in. They are enthusiastic about what they're doing. And we really did. We had a blast getting to know them and getting to know their products. They sent us home with some, and we're excited to maybe share them with some people, maybe give some away. We'll see how that goes. Any way you slice it, I'm sure the guys from A Pot for Pot would love us just getting them out there in the community. So we had them, well, I did. I had them tagged as maybe my outside chance to win that contest, which was $10,000 at the end of the day, and some further investment from accredited investors. Well, they took third place, and we were pretty thrilled about that for them, but it wasn't 10 grand, but it did get them some exposure, and we think that paid off for them on the Tuesday and Wednesday show. They were getting dispensary orders, they were getting people buying on the spot, etc. So enough about A Pot for Pot. We've got an interview with them. We're going to cue that up here in just a few minutes on this podcast. But Jules, what was your favorite thing about the show?
I would have to say it was the environment, the people, the smells, and to be able to walk around and be a part of that.
Yeah, there were about 80 vendors there that ran the gamut. Now, this is a terpenes and testing conference, so this is filled with extraction companies, with companies that provide chemicals and processes and services to extraction companies. It wasn't the sexiest cannabis show in the world per se, but it was really excellent. Jules and I ran into a new old friend there by the name of Steve Ottersberg. Steve is the founder and chief I'm going to say chief scientist at Green Lab Solutions in Durango, Colorado. We knew he was speaking at this conference. We attended in part to hear him speak and just to catch up with him. We met up with him in Las Vegas, and he's a heck of a good guy. His presentation could not have been more over our heads.
Right.
If he was speaking a foreign language. So he's a chemist by trade. He's out of the pharmaceutical company, out of making real medicine. He knows all these 30-letter words that are just real in his world.
It seriously went over my head, a lot of them.
We're the only two people sitting in Otterberg's presentation that were like deer in the headlights. We're front row. We were trying to pull faces and make him giggle. Yeah, he's a pro. He wasn't buying any of it. But he did warn us it was pretty morbid and we might hurl 3 to 50 times. It's pretty crazy. But we had him boil it all down when his presentation was done, and he really distilled it to us, and it sounds like this. The industry is driven by science and driven by scientists who are far more interested in terpenes than they are in THC. That does not mean they have nothing to do with THC. That does not mean they don't want it to be part of cannabis as medicine. In fact, they insist it has to be there. Mm-hmm. But it's not the whole shooting match, is it? Mm-hmm. Nah, it's terpenes. And he's been at this for a while. You do a little due diligence on your part and start looking up science and cannabis science and labs and testing labs and extractors and these companies. Start reading their white papers. Start reading their science blogs. They really do. And it's scary. And they all talk the same way. They're far less interested in THC than they are in terpenes. And terpenes is the whole shooting match for them. So stay tuned for more positive news on Steve Ottersberg. For a fact, it's exciting whether you know it now or not. I guarantee that it's exciting. All right, enough stalling for time. We took the time on the final day of the show to spend about 10 minutes with Josh Mezzer.
Yes.
From A Pot for Pot. He is their chief executive. He's their chief grower. He knows all that. He possesses all that skill set. And here's a really informative 10 or 12 minute audio from Josh Mezzer, A Pot for Pot. Hey, it's John with C Nation, and I'm here with Josh Mezzer, who is, I'm going to call him the chief cook and bottle washer at A Pot for Pot, though that's really discounting his skill set there. This is a professional grower, for a fact. But I want to tell you about A Pot for Pot first. So we ran into their company on Monday at the CN Fest that we were invited to. They were one of 16 companies presenting and competing for a $10,000 prize at the end of the day?
Yeah, $10,000.
Then maybe some Series A commitments or commitments for further investment. It would make sense that if a company, if accredited investors want like you enough to give you 10, then they're going to be around when you need more money. But this product, it caught our eye immediately because if you've listened to enough of our podcasts, you know that we think the home-based marketplace is the real deal. Whether it's suburban housewives and their lifestyle marketing, it doesn't matter. Everybody's on the B2B side of this. How much extract product can I sell to the companies that are growing 1 million plants? And we don't care. Their end results in the dispensaries, go buy some. But people love cannabis, and people will grow it at home if it's simple. Josh, tell us literally how simple this is going to be for anybody that buys A Pot for Pot.
Yeah, so, I think it's kind of ironic because one of the nicknames for the plant is weed. Yet we hear all the time that it's a really difficult plant to grow. And don't get me wrong, when you're growing at scale and you're trying to have a humongous crop have the same consistency and be pest-free, that's a challenge. But if you're just a home hobbyist and you want to go throw a plant outside in one of our pots, then, in 3 to 6 months' time, you're going to get yourself a home harvest.
So you're saying it'll grow like a weed?
Yeah, it'll grow exactly like a weed.
And is it just for outside?
No, you can grow it either inside or outside. Really input of the light will kind of help you get better results. And it's a really interesting plant to grow. It's a phenomenal plant. Not many people know that there's a male and there's a female version of the plant. And one of the remarkable things for us is actually juicing the leaves is an incredibly healthy thing to do.
Right.
It's packed with THCA, amino acids, and stuff like that. It makes wheatgrass look, pathetic in comparison.
Well, anything that's in your flowers and your fan leaves too. I mean, roughly that's true, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fan leaves are remarkable sources of nutrients.
I think people don't really realize that you can just deconstruct your cannabis plant and juice it, and it is very nutritious for sure. So rather than, you're not proposing 14-foot tall sativas that took 9 months to grow, right?
Yeah.
What's the process here?
So, with our kit, when you buy it, you'll get a coupon in there that enables you to redeem some seeds online. And we push the auto-flowering plant. And that's mainly for two reasons. It really makes the process a lot more simpler. Not to get too in-depth into it, but auto-flowering cannabis goes straight from seed into the flowering mode, as typical cannabis is photoperiod flowering, and that requires the light cycle to be in the fall time of the year, where it's 12 hours on and 12 hours off, and then the plant will begin to flower. So auto-flowering plants typically will go from seed, they'll finish 3 to 4 feet high. One of the other interesting things about them is as they were back-crossed with ruderellus, which is the Mexican hemp,
right.
They actually have high CBD. So they'll be 1 to 4% CBD, and they'll be under 20% and above 12% on the THC.
So while my plant is growing, 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 feet tall, can I just be stripping off fan leaves here and there and throwing in the blender with my smoothie? Or am I hurting the plant if I do that?
No. We actually, stripping off the fan leaves will actually encourage the buds to grow a little bit more because you'll expose more sunlight to them. So it's actually a practice that's
are they
common.
taking energy? Are they taking nutrients? Are they taking things from the that really belong at the flower? So they should come off from time to time.
Yeah,
those fan
they
leaves?
should come off from time to time, particularly as it gets later in the cycle. You're going to want to pull those fan leaves off so the plant consumes all of its sugars and everything in the roots.
Directs that to the flower. So when I buy a pot for pot, comes in a couple of different sizes. I'm literally, this is plug and play, right? This is unbox it and.
So you give instructions exactly how, like when to water it, stuff like that?
So what we do is we provide you with a grow guide, and we try to simplify it as much as possible, and then we've got a Facebook group, and we're online to provide support as well. It's entirely natural product. I can't say the word organic, but there is it's totally organic or natural. So we use the soil food web within the kit, so you just add water throughout the growth cycle. There's no complicated nutrients or amendments you've got to give to the pot.
Some perlite or something in there to hold the moisture.
So it comes with perlite, cocoa, that sits on top, and then on the bottom we've got sort of a very powerful soil mix.
For those of you wondering, that really is a professional grow mix of soil. For reals. The peat, the cocoa, the perlite, that is the real deal, for sure.
I just have to say, I've grown before and miserably failed, and I think this is a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea for people, because literally I didn't know anything about it.
Soil's really forgiving, and for whatever reason, I don't even want to say the industry, but I would say the culture has been driven towards hydro.
Right.
And that's mainly because people are trying to push for yields and everything else, and that adds a whole lot of complexity to it. The truth is soil is very easy, and then you'll also get more flavorful buds. There's more terpene profiles and nutrients for them to access because the soil is just how you get organic fruit versus unorganic fruit.
You raise a good point about the hydro. Now, one of the reasons for the indoor hydro type grows is yield, but that's not necessarily just in terms of how much I can get off in one plant. That's also a typical indoor grow on a 12-month cycle can get 3 to 5 complete harvests. Because the grow time's short, because they're simulating the fall. They're turning on the lights and off the lights, and they're making these plants flower as though it's late fall.
Correct.
And so they can turn around plants they can get about 3 or 4 harvests a year.
For a production issue.
So an auto-flowering plant, though it may have less yield per plant per se, you're still going to get your 3 or 4 per year out of that, just like indoor, but all the benefits of the soil grow.
Yeah. And then, of course, if you don't want to grow an auto-flowering plant in the kit, it's perfectly suited for regular flowering cannabis as well. We just encourage you not to grow them too large or grow them to the size of your appropriate pot.
Well, and that brings up a good point. I was going to ask, can these growers transition? I don't think that growing a regular plant versus an autoflower plant's that much different from each other. It's roughly the same thing.
Yeah.
You just have to light dep a plant to get it to start flowering. Do you think if a person transitions away from that autoflower to to a non-autoflower, to a non-ruderalis strain, should they roughly have it in light dep? I mean, that 12 on, 12 off right out of the gate to kind of keep its size where they're used to?
Interestingly enough, you can actually take a regular flowering cannabis plant and straight from seed, just leave it on the 12-12 light cycle.
Right.
And in that instance, it'll actually probably yield less than the auto-flowering plant because it's not getting the benefit of being able to absorb like 18 or 20 hours of light and still flower. So it kind of gets interesting actually when you look at like, if you try to compare yields, there's an argument you could make that would say that an auto-flowering plant might exceed a regular flowering plant if it was from seed, simply because it's getting more energy put into the plant.
That's interesting. So that phase is known as the vegetative, when you just leave them roughly in 24-hour light.
Yeah.
They can't flower when they don't have any darkness. And so if someone's going to transition from autoflower, which really the autoflowers, they just control themselves. They're really going to grow.
Simple.
But if they transition away from autoflower to a more traditional type of cannabis seed, do you recommend a little bit of vegetative stage just to get it built up a little bit and then start with your light dep?
Yeah.
Is that a 2-week? Is that a 2-month? Is it just...
I think it depends whether you're going from seed or from clone. But you want to get the plant hardened off before you really get into the flowering stage.
So any gardeners out there know what hardening plants is, to make them hardy for your for a variety of reasons. But okay. Yeah. So a little bit of vegetative ahead of light dep really is very beneficial to a traditional plant. Well, how the heck are my listeners going to buy your product, Josh? Because it's fascinating. Buy it. Not even kidding.
Thank you. So they can go online to www.apot4pot.com. And we've got a launch sale going right now where it's 40% off. And please come and learn how to grow. And what we like to say is that you'll become much more popular with your friends.
Are you on any social media?
Yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook. We got a Facebook page, which is a guide for growing pot. And then our Instagram handles are just at a pot for a pot and on the respective platform.
Awesome. Josh, thank you very much, man.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. This is a killer product. Buy it today because you'll be ahead of the curve, because in a year your friends are going to be saying, hey, I was at the Home Depot today and I saw... Been there, done that, right? Thanks, Josh. Thanks very much, man.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that interview.
Awesome. Josh is a good dude, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
We had a blast with these guys. I can't even stress that enough. They were just non-stop funny, which suits a guy like me because I think I'm non-stop funny. I'm just non-stop something. But no, we had a blast with them. And did you hear how cool that product is? Autoflower seeds. You can't even go wrong with that.
Instructions how to grow.
Right. It's everything. A good-looking kit. Follow the link. We've got you to apotforpot.com. You can see the products that they're making and shipping. There's a 40% discount right now for a period of time here for anybody listening to this as a result of our relationship with them. So we took an interest in another company there, and in fact, ahead of getting to the conference, we were informed about this company. They're called GemmaCert. They're out of Israel, and their public relations company let us know about them in advance. They were hosting a private party for credentialed media. Mm-hmm. She wanted to make sure that we were in attendance and that we wanted to be in attendance. So they supplied us with a fair amount of ahead of time data on the company. And I've got to tell you, it was really awesome. You'll have to go to their website to really appreciate what we're talking about here, but they've roughly created a tabletop, a desktop size cannabis testing product. It's made from ceramic. It looks like a cookie jar. It really does. It's just about that, a foot tall white ceramic, maybe 6 or 8 inches in diameter. It looks just like a cookie jar, and I believe that was intentional. It's got a little pop-up thing in the center of it that is the testing compartment, and basically it's got 2 little diodes hanging down that you get yourself a nice, real good looking bud. Not too big, but no popcorn. Good size, thumb size bud that'll fit right on that. And, you put it in there, put those 2 diodes in there and close it, and a couple of minutes later, you actually get a very accurate report of THC and of CBD in the cannabis that you're testing. Now, we thought that was pretty cool. We wanted to test the accuracy. There were a few members of the media there that they were prepared. They brought their own cannabis. We did too. We hit a couple of shops around San Jose. We wanted to take some cannabis in there that we knew the information on, but they didn't, because we obviously wanted to put their product to the test. But I probably spent the better part of 3 hours with them a Tuesday night, the first night of the conference, and a little bit of time Wednesday. On Wednesday, we had the opportunity to speak with Guy Setton. Guy is the chief executive of the company. We spoke a little bit about what went on the night before, so if that sounds a little friendly or common and you're not quite sure what that was all about, that's what it was all about. And we got into a discussion of label testing errors and fully explain it in the audio. You'll be amazed at what these companies are doing, either intentionally or just because they don't know. But for either reason, it's absolutely unacceptable, and testing data on the labels needs to be accurate. We're going to give you a quick tool to be able to do that the next time you're shopping in a dispensary where you get labeled cannabis. But let's take a listen to this roughly 15-minute conversation that I had with Guy Setton.
I'm with Guy Setton, the Chief Executive of GemmaCert, and I'm here to tell you this is one of the coolest products I've ever seen. We came to this convention to look at their product and to talk to them a little bit, and actually I think I spent 3 hours in front of their product last night in a little bit of an after-party suite they hosted, and we tested some cannabis that had some labels, that didn't have some labels, and we found some interesting results. And primarily, we found a lot of mislabeled labels. What is up with THCA being misrepresented like this?
Well, I mean, the mislabeling in the industry is quite well documented. There's actually a study which was conducted by Johns Hopkins University a couple of years ago, along with the University of Pennsylvania, which showed that over 80% of the products on the market in the cannabis industry are mislabeled. And part of it has to do with poor analytical regime, and the other side has to do with it is a misunderstanding of, as you mentioned, between THCA and THC.
Is it all labeled data, or is it primarily the THC, because that seems to be the marketing draw to cannabis?
The market, as you correctly mentioned, the marketing drive is mainly THC, but obviously, particularly from medical perspectives, there are people out there who need to know as well the CBD potency. So it applies also to CBD.
We're even seeing incorrect label data on CBD.
Yeah, but the main thing right now is in terms of the market really has to do with THC. What the user should really have available to them, beyond obviously knowing that the product is safe and free of pesticides, etc., is the total THC figure. Okay, because in the flower, in the dry flower, most of the THC found there is actually in its precursor format, which is THCA in its acidic form. And only when the product is heated up does the THCA convert into THC. and there is an equation which enables you to accurately estimate the total THC, which is the realistic amount of THC which a user will be exposed to when they consume the product. And that is, you take your THCA content plus there is still, in a dry flower, there's still some THC already there, but it's really a little amount. So
the THC delta 9.
Yeah, so you take the THCA plus the THC and you multiply all that times 0.877, and that number, the number you get there is much, much more realistic as to what will be the real THC content that you'll be exposed to.
So why doesn't THCA convert 100% to delta 9?
I don't want to go into the chemistry there, but there is product lost along the way when it's heated up.
So it's got a low boiling point.
So it's not 1-to-1, and that's why there is some loss there.
Is it worse with a flame compared to like a ceramic vaporizer? Is that roughly that 877?
It's an 877.
Okay. I actually saw your product work firsthand last night. In fact, I think I hogged the room. We saw something really interesting. The result that the GemmaCert analyzer provided was roughly that 100% number. When we ran the math against the number that was on the label data and compared it to the results generated by GemmaCert, it was really statistically, what's the right word here? It was that THC number 877. It was that. It roughly wound up being that down to the 100th point that is statistically irrelevant. Yeah. So it is interesting to see the labeling data like that. And do you think it's ignorance, or do you think it's intentional, or do you think it's in between?
It's probably in between because, we cannot deny the fact that product is priced higher for higher potency.
True.
And there are, in different markets, different points where the price can jump 20-30% because it's above a certain THC potency.
Well, and they seem to have a little hedge on this because the labeling data almost always says from state to state plus or minus 15% accuracy. Yeah. That's an incredible sway.
It's an incredible range. And by the way, that range or that fluctuation is the exact reason why there's a challenge for the medical community to recommend cannabis for whatever health conditions are out there, because there is no ability to guarantee the dosage, and doctors are constantly what they're trained for is to provide exact dosage for their patients, and this is the exact opposite of what they know what to do. And actually, on a side note, if you go back and read history on cannabis, cannabis, the golden age of cannabis in the medical community was in the second half of the 19th century.
Okay.
When it was widely used across the United States and Europe. And something happened at the end of the 19th century where the medical community abandoned cannabis. And if you go back and you read what happened, doctors were constantly complaining that they don't know how to recommend cannabis because the variation is so immense. Right. What was the knockout blow for cannabis at the time was Bayer came out with aspirin. And the minute you had aspirin, which the doctors knew every time it was a fixed dose, right. It made their life much easier. And they had the confidence to recommend different treatments to their patients, non-cannabis based treatments. And today you have that same problem again. So a lot of the problems the industry is facing today are problems the industry faced over 100 years ago. We're not inventing the wheel all over.
Right.
And so I think there is naivety out there, but there's also a shrewd, I don't know how you want to call it, business decision that because people are not aware exactly what goes on in the plant itself, that whatever we put on the label gets across. But I think for the user, if they go into a dispensary and they buy a product, and just before they buy the product, they can, every smartphone today has a calculator.
Right.
Take that number, multiply times 0.877, and see if it's what you're looking for or not, because that is more likely to be accurate than what's on the label, if you don't have the means, obviously, to test it yourself.
Right. Well, I like this line, this train of thought right now, and I'm going to stick with it real quickly. And if you don't have a solid answer on it, doesn't matter,
Okay.
neither here nor there. It's been said a lot that cannabis was always meant to be a medicinal product and not an intoxicant. People generally will root that in the fact that the potency of cannabis today, primarily THC, has risen over the years. And if we talk about cannabis a century ago, it would not have been anywhere near these levels of THC. Is that correct?
Put it this way, I think that if you would do a thorough study of really what's out there on the market, then you would see that the average is much closer to what it's been over history.
Yeah.
It's true that there are varieties out there with very high THC content, unlike what was available before. Some of it is also questionable whether it's really, if it's really, that's the content of the flowers, or the flowers are adulterated in one way or another. But even assuming that there are very high, above 30% THC flowers out there, I still think it's on the margins of the industry when you look at the industry as a whole. And so I think that the average potency of cannabis available today is probably not that far away than what it was throughout history.
That's interesting. We know that obviously, they're going to tout these big high numbers because 30%, well, because there will always be college freshmen, right?
But, you also have to think, if 30% THC or 40% THC
right.
of the dry weight of the flower, it also doesn't make sense. I mean, the flower, weighs something, you don't have THC in that weight in the flower. So there's some problems there as well.
Just in general, the molecules just won't concentrate.
Exactly.
That's very interesting. One of the things about your product that I really liked, and I'd like you to just say why this is really a differentiator for you, is that it preserves the actual flower. I mean, I saw it. A good-sized bud. Mm-hmm. It's put in the chamber, and that's that. And when the testing is done, guess what? There it is.
Yeah. I think if you look today at all the devices and solutions that are on the market, they are solutions where they came out of the analytical world, out of the professional lab, and professional labs are based on testing individual specimens, individual samples, and providing results. And when you use spectrometry, for example, which is now more and more commonly used in the cannabis industry, as it has already been used and recognized by the FDA for online on-site QA/QC in the pharma and food industries. Even spectrometry, if you apply it on its own, only tests a particular part of the flower.
Okay.
And therefore, the solutions which are available in the market based on spectrometry, in order to overcome that, the heterogeneous nature of the flower, the fact that the trichomes are not spread equally over the flower, they ask you to grind the flower.
Interesting.
And so we knew when we were going to go and develop our product, we knew that we wanted to avoid having to prepare any sample and obviously destroy any sample. And while spectrometry provided a good, affordable solution, we needed to add something onto it in order to avoid that, overcome that challenge. And that's where image analysis comes into play. Basically, we've made the spectrometer much smarter, and we know how today, through image analysis, how to scan entire areas of the flower, not just one particular scan.
Yeah, it's like a three-phase. There's three separate components of that really
it's basically it's a moving spectrometer. And here I go back to where I started, was that we developed a product with the supply chain in mind, with the patient in mind, with the doctor in mind, and not the lab. Okay, and while the lab is interested in one particular flower, the supply chain is interested in the batch.
Right.
And the batch, you need to know the average of the batch. And so when you need to test 10, 15 flowers from a batch to get an average, then you want something that's easy to use, quick, and obviously you don't want to be destroying that number of flowers.
Right.
So that's why we've gone down that path of spectrometry and image analysis.
Well, we've seen the product. I love it. I really do like it. It's it's a small countertop thing. It looks like a cookie jar, to be quite honest. I like the design quite a bit. I view it as a cost-effective item. Do you see this like in a doctor's office in his office? Do you see this with a grower? Do you see this with the parents at home that are helping dose their children? All of the above?
I think it's today it's all of the above.
Okay.
I think my vision for the longer term, when you walk into a supermarket and you buy any product, you don't go test the product. You trust the brand, you trust the label. Obviously, every number of years there's some scandal out there and some mislabeling in the food industry, but 99% of the time it's right. And I think that eventually, hopefully, one day the cannabis industry will be like that as well. And so our technology will only be used by the professionals, from the doctors all the way through to the growers, but that the consumer will have trust in what they're getting.
So if they want to claim they have 30% THC, they'll either have to raise that or stop making the claims,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Because it'll be GemmaCert certified. That'll be the label on the
But
packaging.
in today's uncertainty in the market, with regulatory uncertainty or naiveness about the science and everything, lack of trust in the labels, then the device is really applicable to everyone on the supply chain.
Awesome. Do you have plans for different versions, different types, larger, smaller, personal, carry type, big whole room size stuff?
Well, we obviously have a plan, part of it already under development, for additional analytical capabilities for the existing device. Some of it will be prioritized based on feedback we get in the market, but we're talking about additional cannabinoids, additional terpenes, moisture, possibly also mold. We do see eventually this industry, it's inevitable that there will be consolidation on the grow side.
Sure.
There will be large players and economies of scale will come into play. And like every agricultural sector or product, when it goes mainstream, you need automated lines. And we believe that our technology can be applied to automatically sort flowers on conveyor belts.
And still preserve them?
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
So it wouldn't be one sensor, it would be a number of sensors.
Right.
It would be a larger system, but it would enable the facility to scan the flowers in real time and start sending them off to different directions based on preset criteria.
Like the Postal Service does. Yeah. sorting letters by zip code.
Exactly.
Well, Guy, that's really all I have. I really like your product a lot. I saw it in action. It worked like a charm. Some product we had wasn't labeled, but we suspected it was here or there, and we could see the marketing hype. There was no question about it. To your point, you're in a dispensary with labeled THCA, multiply it by 0.877, and that's probably what you're really buying.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you really enjoyed that interview we had. So, John, I have a quick question, because you asked me in the beginning of this podcast, so I'm going to now ask you this. What was your favorite moment?
Oh, my. I got to tell you guys, I'm like a kid in a candy shop when it comes to these conventions. And I'm glad that this one wasn't particularly, massive. It was roughly contained in one room, only about 80 vendors or so, but they were in an appropriate sized room. And while we weren't elbow to elbow by any stretch, there wasn't a lot of open space in there. It was perfectly situated for the number of attendees and the number of vendors.
Yeah, the first day was always really busy. The second day, not so much.
I want to say sitting in on Ottersberg's presentation was my favorite thing, but that will just inflate his ego. And you should meet his ego.
He was an awesome
guy. Steve's a great guy, and I'm just busting his hump right now at the moment. I do have to say this, though. We sat right across, so we had a table and a couple of chairs, and we sat right across from a vendor who was in the business of extracting terpenes. Their source of terpenes were, he said, botanical, so not cannabis, flowers and plants and fruits and vegetables and these types of things. Terpenes occur in nature everywhere. And I want to tell you, they were pimping all of their flavors. This smells like an Andes mint. Nah. This smells like cantaloupe. Nah.
Strawberries and kiwi.
This smells like strawberry and kiwi. Nah.
It actually did.
Yeah. Guess what? Like ridiculously smelled like that.
I heard people coming across that table. They're like, "Hey, get free smells." I got free smells all day.
Yeah, it's true. They would turn their cups over upside down at the end of the day or thereabout. The aroma from that, it was super impressive, and we just sat across from these sweet, fruity flavors all day long. We'd get up and Go pick up a cup and smell it. Yeah, that's cantaloupe, man. It sure is lemon pie. I mean, you name it. Yeah. And they're selling these things for the purpose of being able to flavor cannabis extracts, oils that you'll find in cartridges, really anything, but just not that. We sat through, they had a demo stage at the convention on the expo floor there, and at one point they were doing basically terpene shots. They were just using water, regular water, or mineral water that maybe had a little carbonation in it, and just the terpenes for flavor. But it was a smash hit. Mm-hmm. And later that night, the gang that was up there making these terpene drinks, there was a hosted party. Our friend Cheyenne, her company hosted that party at one of the local bars. I think it was called the Continental. They hosted a party, and it was killer. I stopped in for a couple of tacos and to say hi to a few people, and man, it was elbow to elbow fun. But that group was saying, come to the party tonight at the Continental, because then you can add your own favorite booze to these terp shots and see really how awesome it is. Now, we're a couple of non-drinkers here, so all of that was roughly neither here nor there, but I did have an opportunity to speak to people at the party that night that were taking them up on their offer and including their favorite booze and their favorite drinks. And I'm here to tell you, you own a bar or want to own a bar, terpenes might be your unique little niche.
Yeah, start looking into it.
And separate you from the crowd.
Yep.
People are terpene hungry in the world right now, and they don't really know why. But trust us when we tell you, terpenes are the goodness. Oh, they are the goodness in cannabis and in nature in general. This is a cannabis podcast, but golly, do some research into terpenes, because mind blown. Anything else, Jules? It was a heck of a long week, wasn't it? We drove out to San Jose. It's not a quick drive. It's not a quick return drive. No snowstorm this time. We left in time to beat that actually did blow through Salt Lake City the next day. Yep. But it was no President's Day weekend show. We didn't have to duck down to Bakersfield or anything. I would like everyone listening to this podcast today to know that we've got a score of interviews lined up. We've got an interview with a pharmacist in Minnesota who might literally redefine every last thing you think you know about cannabis.
Now, he blew my mind too.
True story.
Awesome guy.
True story. This could be, I hate to use the word game changer. His information could be a very real game changer, particularly to those of us in favor of the ballot initiative in Utah in November. All right, Jules, before we call this quits, I know we gotta say hey to a few people, right? So of course, definitely Karen Blondell and John Sidline at Canna Newswire and the Cannabis Story Lab, which is the name of their public relations company. Canna Newswire is their event company. You two did a spectacular job. Every need that we had was met. It was totally professionally run. We knew what we were doing when we got there. We had good notice for some companies that we wanted to visit because of them before we got there. So John, Karen, thank you very much. Who else, Jules?
We also need to thank Gina B. from the Terpenes and Testing magazine.
Gina B. was awesome.
She was a very sweet lady.
Absolutely. She runs their social media. We are avid followers of Terpenes and Testing magazine on Twitter and Facebook and anywhere else we can find them. So we're always retweeting and whatnot. They put the most fascinating information out there on Twitter. So anyway, Gina B, absolutely, thank you so much for a great show. We're looking forward to the next edition of your magazine, plus the new one you were telling us about. So for everyone at the Kush Journals, I'm C Nation John. Say bye, Jules.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you very much for a normal goodbye.
It was a normal one. I sometimes have to scoot it in there.
See you around. The Kush Journals is a copyrighted broadcast of the South American Gold Corporation.
We appreciate your likes and shares on social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.